For it's Betty Bob who brought us all here together today, connected in a variety of ways, but all here because of her. My personal connection began as she kept a watchful eye on the unmarried aeronautical engineer who built a house across the street from the Buckleys and began to date. Fortunately, that dating was with my mother, and my sisters and I were the result of that union. We were connected in the neighborhood, in church, and in Betty Bob's wisdom and compassion. For as I was toddling around the house, she, not the doctors, was the one who informed my parents that their next children would be twins. She knew. My sisters arrived and needed more care than my family could provide, so our family had to live apart. But it was Betty Bob who, over the next years, all of the years, continued to ask about my sisters nearly every time we saw each other. Few people did or do. But caring and compassion and remembering, that was how Betty Bob created and built community. In the last few months, we connected in another way. She was supportive of my ministry, and we had conversations about her readiness for what was next. Her faith had grounded her and guided her this far, and she believed it would continue to do so. Her faith in God, I think, was the foundation of who she was. Her genuine interest in other people, her acceptance and compassion. She knew the power of the psalmist's words, God's steadfast love endures forever. For she embodied that steadfast love, and today we celebrate her loving life as a gift from God, a gift of God to each of us. Will you join with me in prayer? Eternal giver of life and life beyond our understanding, pour out your blessings upon us this day as we gather to celebrate and give thanks for the life of Betty Bob Buckley. We gather to remember, to share stories, to laugh, to cry, to give witness to the power of love and hope and joy. Surround us with your comforting presence. Guide our time together that it might reflect a spirit of optimism, of grace, of love, and community. For these are the gifts you wove together in creating her, and thankfully she shared these gifts with us. We offer this prayer in the name of the one who has given us life everlasting, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Hi, I'm Erin Buckley, and oh my gosh. Sorry, Vivo. Hi, I'm Erin, and I just wanted to welcome everybody who's here today to honor my grandma from all of the Buckley family, and just so appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to sing a song you guys probably already know from South Pacific called Cockeyed Optimist, because it just, to me, like totally epitomizes my grandmother and her view like on the world and her kind of attack every day. So thank you so much for being here. When the sky is a bright canary yellow, I forget every cloud I've ever seen. So they call me a cockeyed optimist, immature and incurably green. I have heard people rant and rave and bellow that we're done and we might as well be dead, but I'm only a cockeyed optimist, and I can't get it into my head. I hear the human race is falling on its face and hasn't very far to go, but every whippoorwill is selling me a bill and telling me it just ain't so. I could say life is just a bowl of Jell-O and appear more intelligent and smart, but I'm stuck like a dope with a thing called hope, and I can't get it out of my heart. Not this heart.
Wish I'd sang the song. That was wonderful. I'm going to read a poem that gives Norman Comfort by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each day as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as music does towards silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. And when it's over, I want to say all my life was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened and full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Love you.
"22 years of stage management." It served me well. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all here. Lots of old friends and new friends and theater community and journalism community and all the things that Betty Bob loved. My name is Kathy O'Neill, and I'm just so honored to help celebrate the life of the force that was Betty Bob Buckley. I am incredibly lucky to have known Betty Bob since I met Norman, her youngest, when we were both in middle school at Leonard Middle School, and was in and out of her house ever since then. We became friends right away, and one of Betty Bob's favorite stories to tell, and I'm glad I'm telling this story because we have some Western Hills grads here today.
Yes.
Representing, yes, thank you very much. Her favorite story to tell about Norman and I was that we both wanted to be the editor of our high school yearbook when we were seniors at Western Hills. And then Betty Bob would say, but Kathy was named editor. And then she would go, and they're still friends. So Norman and I survived that indignity of me being chosen editor over him. I will say in my defense, I drew him in to help me with the yearbook, and it was really a joint project. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, it was, and we did a really good job. So anyway, that's how I started out with Betty Bob. Betty Bob showed me what it is to have a mother who was loving and encouraging and supportive. It's a mother anyone would want to have, and I was so lucky to be in that orbit. So I just want to take a second to thank Norman and Patrick and Betty Lynn for sharing her with me all of those years. It has meant so much to me. As an adult, I was on the same career path as Betty Bob, journalist, then communications and PR. And so we knew a lot of people together. We had a lot in common. We went to a lot of the same events. And she stayed a devoted advisor and mentor and friend to me through all of my career. She was very good at picking out things that I should look at doing or introducing me to people I should know. And it has really been a real advantage to have had that. Betty Bob wasn't just a journalist, though. She was a trailblazer and a role model for women in journalism. She started at the Big Spring Herald. And that may not sound like a great big start, but most of us start somewhere. I started at the Desert Trail in 29 Palms, California. So you don't have to start at the Times Herald or the Star Telegram. No offense, but I know that you're here today. And he's still there. Anyway, she started there when she was only 16. And she had her very first front page story when she was only 18. And it wasn't a story about what the local women's club was doing or someone's big fancy wedding. It was a story about the local reaction to D-Day. And she was only 18 and a woman. At that time, that was practically unheard of in the business. Here in North Texas, she continued that role model influence, and she was editor of a newsletter called The Flying Hens. I've always loved that title. That kept Air Force wives current in the news at Carswell Air Force Base and 6 other bases, while her husband Ernest was stationed at Carswell. She also wrote for the Old Fort Worth Press, only because she walked into the newsroom one day and said to the editor, "I would like my own column." Only someone who's had their front page story at 18 would do that. But she did, and guess what? She got her own column. It was called Carswell Conversations. Again, she was reporting for Carswell. She wrote for every newspaper wherever she lived, and I admired that about her. She was an active member of the Society of Professional Journalists, as was I, so we went to a lot of things together. I drove her sometimes. I always knew I had someone to sit with at dinner, and we always had great conversations together. But she was also instrumental in starting the forward chapter of Women in Communications. It was during that leadership role that she became the co-founder of Celebrity Breakfast. I know many of you in the audience will remember Celebrity Breakfast. For decades, that event raised thousands of dollars for journalism scholarships. And it was all about having breakfast together with other strong women in the business. And she had her very best friend, Bobby Wygant, who we lovingly remember also, who would interview women celebrities live on stage. And those women included Lady Bird Johnson and Barbara Walters and Liz Carpenter. Betty Bob left journalism to become public relations director of Casa Manana Theater. And Betty Bob and I both completed our journalism degrees at UTA after working professionally for many years. And there were many times when I was like, why am I doing this? Because it was hard. And Betty Bob would say, it's important and it's for you. And she was absolutely right. It was important, and I was doing it for me. Education was important to Betty, and at every stage of her long and amazing life. Her beloved Ernest passed away in 1989. And the family established a scholarship for engineering students at South Dakota State University, where it's the last place that Mr. Buckley taught. That scholarship has recently been renamed to the Ernest and Betty Bob Buckley Memorial Scholarship. And today, in celebration of our Betty Bob, we have exciting news to share with you. I'm especially excited to introduce our guest here today because she was also an influential woman in my life. She is also a strong woman and a great role model and advisor. She's able to handle students and nervous adjunct teachers, which I was for 6 years under her leadership. So please help me welcome the department chair of the communications department at University of Texas at Arlington, Dr. Charla Markham Shaw.
Although I didn't have the privilege of meeting Mrs. Buckley, what I've garnered from reading about her and talking to those of her who did, she was a multifaceted person who was creative in all the good ways, who was engaged in the community, who was inquisitive, and just wanted to make the world a better place and give voice to others. So we are greatly honored in the Department of Communication at the University of Texas, Arlington, to help keep her legacy alive through the Betty Bob Buckley Memorial Endowed Scholarship. This scholarship serves undergraduate students who are majoring and pursuing careers in journalism and in broadcasting. And at UTA in the Department of Communication, we serve about 200 undergraduate students majoring in those two fields each year. And this scholarship will support those new journalists as they go into their communities to impact and to innovate in keeping with the legacy and the spirit of Betty Bob Buckley. So I am so deeply grateful on behalf of the College of Liberal Arts and the Department of Communication at UTA to Norman Buckley and his family for making this meaningful tribute possible. And to those many of you who have contributed to growing the scholarship and extending her legacy and honoring her remarkable life. We are so grateful.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Briganti. I've worked with Betty Lynn for 25 years, and when I first met her mom, we still lived in New York, and we would commute a lot and stay with her, and she just welcomed me right into her family, and she was just very, very lovely to me all the time. Actress Ruta Lee is known for her many films and TV appearances. She was the female member of the original Rat Pack. Her history at Casa Manana began in the 1960s. She returned every year for performances and was named an honorary citizen of Fort Worth in 1969. Ruta, Betty Bob, and Bobby Wygant became fast friends. She sent this email to Betty Lynn. My darling Betty, your precious mom was truly a fixture in my life. I am so grateful God put her there. She was one of the foundation stones of Casa Manana and created so much of its laudable history. I believe she is loved and respected by everyone who ever crossed her path. I know things change far too rapidly in life, but the Betty Bob Buckley, Bobby Wygant combo is a pair of loving ladies that I truly miss. They made my life so much more beautiful, and I am so happy they did for each other as well. Stay well, my dear girl, and please give my love to all. Ruta. Van Kaplan was the CEO and general manager of Casa Manana from 1990 to 1997. He then went on to be the CEO and executive director of the Pittsburgh Civil Light Opera from 1997 to 2022, one of the largest musical theater organizations in the country. He has been an actor, stage manager, director, and is a Tony Award-winning producer. He has produced over 30 Broadway shows. He has instituted programs all over the country and has been a consultant to many national programs, including the National Endowment for the Arts. He is a board member of the Broadway League and is a lifetime Tony voter. Van has flown in from New York to join us today in our celebration. He worked closely with Betty Bob at Casa Manana for years. Please welcome Van.
Well, I met Betty Bob in the fall of 1980. I was hired at Casa Manana by Charles Ballinger to be a resident actor in the Children's Playhouse. And in addition to acting in the shows and rehearsing at night and teaching, we were also asked to work in the office during the days. And I knew absolutely nothing about theater administration. And somehow I landed in the PR trailer, which was a converted mobile home, which sat in the parking lot just right to the right side of the theater. And as luck would have it, I had the great pleasure of not only meeting Betty Bob, but assisting her when the summer season rolled around. Betty Bob made a lasting impression on me. I may have been a little bit taller than her, but she always towered over me. Always a ray of sunshine and incredible optimism. She had a really sharp wit. She was very, very funny. And she was always cheering me on. Everybody loved her. And the time I spent with Betty Bob led me to discover that I had a knack for administration. And the next year, I became the publicity director at the Children's Playhouse, eventually the theater's first development director, then administrative director, and executive producer, finally. Thank you, Betty Bob. Betty Bob's history at Casa goes back to the original Billy Rose days. Her older sister, Mary Ruth, performed during the summers of 1938 and 1939 as a dancer in the original Casa Manana, this enormous amphitheater that sits almost where Casa sits today. It was built during the Texas Centennial. Betty Bob used to talk about how she would go and watch her sister dance in the Paul Whiteman Orchestra. The original theater was torn down for airplane parts, I think, for World War II. But in 1958, the city passed a bond election and built the full-time theater in the round. It was designed by Buckminster Fuller and is that iconic geodesic dome that we still see today. Betty Bob served as CASA's Director of Public Relations in the 70s and 80s. And it was at CASA that a young Betty Lynn would make her professional debut. I met Betty Lynn in the summer of 1982. She was starring in The Sound of Music. Already a Broadway and television star, she would go on to win the Tony Award the very next year in 1983 for Cats. And that was the same year that Betty Bob would leave CASA and go to South Dakota with Ernest. My time with Betty Bob was really special. She knew everyone, including, of course, her lifelong friend and partner in fun, Bobby Wygant. Betty Bob took me around town to meet all the reviewers and to Dallas to meet my childhood hero, Jerry Haynes, Mr. Peppermint. My brother and I grew up in Dallas watching his show, and there I was performing on the Mr. Peppermint show for the CASA Playhouse. CASA in 1980 was full of excitement, big name stars, and it was the place to be. And I found the program from that year. And I just wanted to read you the shows that Betty Bob promoted that summer season. It started with the Debbie Reynolds Show, then Avery Schreiber, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Richard Fredericks, who was a big opera star in Kismet, Howard Keel in Camelot, Artie Johnson from Laugh-In and Sugar, the Smothers Brothers, Anson Williams from Happy Days in How to Succeed, Sid Caesar and Emma Jean Coca in A Touch of Burlesque, and Ruta Lee in Gypsy, of course, and the Phyllis Diller Show. All of that in 12 weeks. I mean, we were nuts in those days. Somehow, Betty Bob kept her cool. When Betty Bob returned to Fort Worth in 1990, I had just become the executive producer at Casa Manana. She would go on to serve on the board and the advisory committee. She was always so supportive. She attended every one of my opening nights. I can't begin to tell you how much that meant to a young producer to see her in the theater wearing a very colorful scarf, sitting alongside of Bobby Wygant, the television icon, cheering me on. And she never stopped supporting me. Over the years, not only did Betty Bob reach out to wish me a happy birthday every year, but she was so excited with my success in Pittsburgh. I would often see her and Bobby when one of my shows toured to the Dallas Summer Musicals. There they were on opening nights, sitting together, my personal cheering section. The last time I saw Betty Bob was in 2015 at the Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor. Betty Lynn was starring in Grey Gardens, and Mary Jane and I decided we were going to go over and see the show on closing night. Eugene was there. Just a few months earlier, Betty Bob had reached out to me to tell me how much she enjoyed my production of American in Paris on Broadway. When Mary Jane and I walked into Bay Street, there was Betty Bob, looking the same as ever, sitting right next to Bobby. It was a magical evening, and it brought back so many, many memories. We reminisced, and it was as if time stood still. You never know who is going to change your life. How lucky I was. We were to have had Betty Bob in ours, forever cheering us on. Thanks.
Hey everybody, my name is Nicholas Buck. I was Betty Bob's pen pal. And I wanted to share after I found out about her passing, I wanted to write something to encapsulate our friendship, because I didn't know her for, as many of you have known her, for decades, but I really felt a real sense of kinship with her, because there was a real ease with her of like being able to open up and feel like you're being seen and really heard. She was very interested in people, and I'm very interested in people. And I think, and with her being always on the beat in some way, always trying to figure out what the story is, that really resonates with me. And her love for candy, of course. So, which is a definite love of mine. So I wanted to read the letter that I wrote to her after her passing. And I feel like she knew all these things, but I also wanted the world to know all these things and know what the real loss was with her. Dear Betty Bob, I wish this letter wasn't the last one, that it wasn't typed and instead in my usual style. But it's fitting that I share with the world your memory, for how you opened your heart and your arms to me. It's like the unfolding letter of the gentle heart, which whispers I love you in soft and accepting ways. How comfortable I felt in your home, which was always warm and inviting, so much so that much of my time near you was spent asleep on the couch across from your chair, or eating candy with you, or sneaking candy, sneaking your candy as an excuse to eat more candy, as an excuse to make you smile and feel good and feel seen. In these and in many other ways, we shared space and I felt at home. You gave me the rare gift of belonging. Such is a mother's care. These small things of rest and belonging are such large treasures in my heart, and I will always long for them in the ways that I long for all the small things that are large treasures in my heart, with nostalgia and yearning, not always after the fact, because I knew them to be precious in the experiencing of them and of you, but because I will miss you and there's no way to go back. You brought me to the table of your breakfast, and not once batted an eye at this strange man with his camera and notebook, capturing memories for fear of forgetting the details. You were kind to me in this way too, in the same ways that my own mom understood my needs in these things. Both of you bathing me with such maternal care. You read your paper and I read your face and the details of your home, relishing in the stained glass pheasant and Taz, who was there, a staple in the menagerie of friendships that honored your life. I love writing you letters because I know you cherish them so. I know that you would take the time with magnifier in hand and read, oh so carefully, every little scrawl. You gave me a place in your heart to love, and I never once felt it weird or awkward, and that too is a treasure I hold. Even now in your parting. You see, you gave me so many treasures, and I wish I could have shared more with you, that I could have brought more orchids and more prisms, and filled every moment you had left with unique things. But we did what we could and smiled at each other without pressure, and that is enough. I knew you and you knew me in a brief spell, and we gave easily and with much love and made a beautiful bed of our words to each other. Yours were soft touches and easy kisses, and I will remember them for all time, as I do all the angels who inhabit my life. I do want you to know that I saw you, as you were when you were young, and as you were only a few months ago, wringing out every last drop of life, always looking for the story, chasing the beat. I love that spirit in you. May I emulate even a breath of your appetite for life. I hope that you rest easy now, with Bobby and Ernest and Mike, that you drop me a thought, a kiss and a hug from heaven, and say hi to my mom too. I will remember you always. My love eternal. I love you, Betty Bob. Thank you for being my pen pal. Love always, Nick.
Well, greetings to all of you and welcome to this beautiful service and to those beautiful words that have been spoken by all of these guests here. Such tributes. And I see our pianist over there. I want to say greetings again, and I want to say, to me, Betty Bob is a Fort Worth legend. During her lifetime in Fort Worth, I cannot think of any arena where Betty Bob did not exert her influence on our community. Betty Bob had an interest in journalism, business, civic life, education, and religion. That will tell you something about who she was, something of what she thought, what she did, and hoped to accomplish. Her character was cheerful, full of energy, and always looking for something fun and interesting to do. I want to read this brief excerpt from a poem by Robert Browning, which describes my friendship with her. Grow old along with me. The best is yet to be. The last of life for which the first was made. Our times are in his hand. Who saith, aho, I planned, youth shows but half, trust God, see all, nor be afraid. The first of life was brought home most vividly to me when I traveled with Norman and Betty Bob to Big Spring, Texas, where she had lived most of her young life. Remember, the Great Depression drastically affected children by causing widespread hunger, inadequate housing, and limited access to education and health care. Also, family instability, including desertion, and emotional distress often led to long-term physical and psychological scars, though some experienced also strength of character. Such it was for Betty Bob. She had a strength of character molded by these experiences in her young life. Her life is about the strength of a mother's love, the harsh realities of the Great Depression. We had a wonderful life together, sharing dinners weekly, many times with Pat and Diane, watching TV together, especially watching Norman's production of Sweet Magnolias. And there was Betty Lynn's Hello Dolly tour, which took us to Chicago, along with Bobby Wygant and Sharon Binge. Can you imagine the four of us loose in Chicago? Emerging from all of this are all of the elements of Betty Bob. Intellectual curiosity, generosity, humor, courage, ambition, and a sense of public responsibility, which made Betty Bob such a remarkable woman. Daughter, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, and a friend to all. In closing, a poem, Let My Love Be Heard by J. Rumstead. Angels, where you soar up to God's own light, take my own lost bird on your hearts tonight. And as grief once more mounts to heaven and sings, let my love be heard, whispering in your wings. Thank you.
Hello, I am Diane Buckley, married to Pat Buckley. And my early life, I had tragedy. My mother died when I was 22. She was 49. And I've had mothers that helped me along the way, especially after I had my son. My friend Cheryl Draker, and her daughter Tatiana, her mother was Maida, and Maida was the incredible force. But as time went on, I would go to Betty Bob because I thought by romancing her, it could get to Pat. And it worked. So she became my mother in every way that a woman is a mother. She was loving. She picked me up when I felt flat on my face. We had so much in common. I'm a theater arts teacher. We love musicals, especially the ones from the 40s. And I love picking out some music for her that's being played today. And the thing when you would go see Betty, she always had rose bushes. And I loved that about her. You know, and they would cut them and bring them in and do things like that. So the poem I'm going to read is about mother. And I did call Betty Bob my mother for many years. And she was a lot of fun. And she and Bobby were the party girls. And their antics just was wonderful. If Roses Grow in Heaven by Dolores Garcia. If roses grow in heaven, Lord, please pick a bunch for me. Place them in my mother's arms and tell her they're from me. Tell her I love her and tell her I miss her. And when she turns her cheek to smile, place a kiss upon that cheek and hold her for a while. Because remembering her is easy. I do it every day. But there's an ache within my heart that will never go away.
Hi, I'm Pat Buckley. I want to read Psalm 118:24. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now that's my mother. She was always positive, and always looked at the bright side of things in our family. And so we wanted to thank you all so much for being here today and coming and being with us so that we can remember how great she was. So thank you.
Had to be you. I wandered around and finally found somebody who could make me be blue, could make me be true, and even be glad just to be sad, thinking of you. Some others I've seen might never be mean, might never be cross or try to be boss. Oh, but they wouldn't do. For nobody else gave me a thrill. With all your faults, I love you still. It had to be you, wonderful you. It had to be you.
I'm Betty Lynn. I was the firstborn of of her Betty Bob's 4 children, and I thought it was a great thing to be her daughter. But then my twin brothers arrived, and it was tough, you know. So, and then my youngest brother came along, and I was like, damn. So, one of my favorite stories about my mother has to do with that song you just heard. I'm glad my brother told me before the memorial today, or the celebration of life, as we like to call it. Oh my God, everybody's here. I'm just so glad you guys are here. It's so great to see you. We had no idea who would remember to come, and so we're very, very happy to see you all. And thank you so much for the people who flew in and everything you've said today. Oh my God, it's just so beautiful. It means so much. Anyway, I was hoping I wouldn't cry. I'm sorry. I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude to see you all. So some years ago, I'm pretty sure it was before this video, this was my mother's 90th birthday that Norman just played that video. I was doing a concert with the Fort Worth Symphony at Bass Hall, and I had this big idea that it would be really cool to bring my mother up, because one of her favorite stories, you have to know that she sang around our house all the time. And our wonderful friend Eugene Goetz was playing all these songs before our memorial started today that were picked by Diane and Pat and Norman and me. But she knew the words to all of them, and it was such a delight listening to her sing. And I think I wanted to be a singer because she had this beautiful voice and sang. I played that video actually for my voice teacher this past week, and she goes, "Oh my God, you have the same ring in your voice that your mother did," and that she's the reason I'm a singer. So I just took such joy with listening to her sing, and she knew everything from the American Songbook. She had a really vast collection of Broadway cast albums and great lady singers, and that's how I knew all the history of Broadway. I was inspired to become the artist that I've become because of my mom. So I had this big idea because she, in high school, one of her favorite stories that she loved telling us was this big band came to Big Spring High School. And the band leader said to the student body, do you all have someone from your school that's a singer that would like to come up and sing with us? And the whole student body was like, Betty Bob, Betty Bob, Betty Bob. And so she got up and sang spontaneously with this big band. And that was one of her favorite stories to tell us. So I thought how cool it would be to bring her up at the Bass Hall to sing with the Fort Worth Symphony. But we didn't tell her. So, I mean, I'm not always the nicest person, but anyway, my band, my 4-piece quartet was within the orchestra, and they were like, "Are you sure you should do this, Betty Lynn? You know, it's like, won't she be like really upset?" And I said, "No, you don't know, Betty Bob." So she was sitting next to Bobby, and our brother Pat was supposed to bring the stairs down. He arranged for the stairs to come down to the audience and from the stage. And so we told Bobby, you know, so when I'm talking about her and telling this story about her high school experience, Bobby Weigat's like, "Be a good sport, Betty Bob," because Betty Bob went into this state of like, you know, complete shock. And so she kind of, I remember she floated down the aisle, and my brother was there to help her up the stairs. And so I had the lyrics, it had to be printed up in large letters so she could see them, and had a stool for her to sit on, and sat her down and was standing next to her. And then I started the song to help her get started. And so she started singing kind of timidly at first. And then I reached over to turn the page for her for the lyric, and she literally pushed me back. And I was like, okay, you know, and she started singing and popping her shoulder, and it was outrageously good. And the whole audience jumped to their feet afterwards, you know, full house standing ovation, which they hadn't done that for me. And so so we had, Kathy was on stage, ready to like help her off the stage, stepping over the cables for the orchestra and the sound system and stuff. So Kathy comes to escort her off, and she literally, as they got to the wings, she pushed Kathy back and came back out for this huge curtain call. And it's one of my favorite memories. I'll never forget it. It was so great. I love hearing everybody's stories of that we have this commonality in how we viewed her. Can we get that phone? Oh, well, they'll stop ringing soon. The fact of a memorial or a celebration of life lets us all realize that we all saw and experienced the same human being, which is such a affirmation of life, I think, and love. And it's been so lovely hearing what everybody's had to say about my mom. And I'm so grateful to Van for flying in, our favorite producer. And so one of my other most beloved memories of my mother was singing this song, which was written by an Italian artist in 1958, and it was the #1 on the Billboard Top 100. It was a great recording. And she used to joyfully, we had a split level house, and she would come down the stairs singing this song. And I remember being 10 years old and just being, she's so cool. You know, she just sang at the top of her lungs. So I want to share this song with you because it actually, the more I investigated the Italian translation, it really speaks to who my mother is. It's about the song is called Volare, and it means to fly, flying. And it was inspired by a Chagall painting where this person is painted blue and his hands are blue in face. And but it's all about love and releasing yourself to ecstasy and letting yourself being basically kidnapped by joy is the translation. And so I just, I didn't know all of that. I just knew of the song and how much it meant to me listening to her sing it. She did not sing it in Italian. But as a homage to her, I wanted to get to know the song better. And so I worked with my Italian coach who's in Paris. I just want you to know I put a lot of work into this. And I looked it up in the translation and everything. And so I'm not certainly, well, anyway, I'll quit apologizing. My wonderful friend Eugene flew in from New York to play the music that you heard before because they were Betty Bob's favorites. Thank you, Eugene. And to accompany me on this. And okay, wish me luck on the Italian. Those of you that can speak Italian. I'm speaking English too, don't worry. Sometimes the world is a valley of heartache and tears. And in the hustle and bustle, no sunshine appears. But you and I have our love always there to remind us. There is a way we can leave all the shadows behind us. Volare, oh, cantare, oh, let's fly way up to the clouds, away from the maddening crowds. We can sing in the glow of a star that I know of, where lovers enjoy peace of mind. Let us leave the confusion and all disillusion behind. Just like birds of a feather, a rainbow together we'll find. Volare, sing with me. Oh, e cantare. Oh, no wonder my happy heart sings. Your love has given me wings. Penso che un sogno così non ritorni mai più. Mi dipingevo domani alla faccia de blu. Poi d'improvviso venivo dal vento rapito. Incominciavo a volare nel cielo infinito. And sing, volare. Oh, e cantare. Oh, nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù. E volavo, volavo felice più in alto del sole ed ancora più su. Mentre il mondo pian piano spariva lontano laggiù. That's pretty good, right? Una musica dolce suonava soltanto per me. And volare. Oh, e cantare. Oh, no wonder my happy heart sings. Your love has given me wings. Nel blu dipinto di blu, felici di stare lassù.
A year ago, we celebrated our mother's 99th birthday at the Fort Worth Club. And someone asked me at the time why we were having a big party then as opposed to waiting until today, her 100th birthday. I said I wasn't sure she'd make it, and I wanted to celebrate her while she was still here. And given how present and lively she was that night, I don't know why I said that, but it was an inner knowing, an acceptance of the reality of the inevitable, that she was headed towards the conclusion of a most accomplished and amazing life. I wrote in my journal on January 2nd of this year, Mother wasn't feeling very well yesterday. It's always worrisome. I remind myself that she's 99 years old and not likely to survive too much longer. It's a reality that we've been struggling with for a long time. And anyway, what's enough? 100 years, 105. She's sleeping more and more, and she can barely walk. She's suffering. So how to prepare? How to let go with grace? It's an interesting process, struggling with life, because that's what we do. We struggle towards some type of goal that's always just beyond our reach, and we never quite get there. We work towards it, and then at some point, we let go of the struggle. But she's not ready yet. She's a warrior. Thoughts of an afterlife don't permeate her thinking. They're a side issue, because the greater part of her is still engaged with life, still interested in what's happening. She reads the newspaper every day. She wants to know what's happening next. She finds meaning in her experience. That is who our mother was. She engaged with life on its own terms. Even though she always tried to put a positive spin on it, it was by no means a smooth ride. She knew a lot of loss. She was born to parents who had a troubled marriage. Her father lost his bakery in Big Spring during the Depression. He was a gambler and a wanderer, joining a carnival and leaving his wife, son, and daughters to fend for themselves. Our grandmother, Mary, or Nana as we called her, had a nervous breakdown, retreating to our great-grandmother, Mama Barnes' house in Marlow, Oklahoma. In 1936, at 10 years old, our mother was sent to live with her paternal grandparents, the Diltzes, in Chickasha. Shortly after she arrived, she was riding in a car with them when they had a head-on collision. Her grandmother, Rosalie Diltz, was killed, and her mom was knocked unconscious. She returned to Mama Barnes' house, and it was at that early age, at 10, our mother essentially became Nana's caretaker, nursing our grandmother back to health with the help of our great-grandmother. But during her time in Marlow, our mom also had 2 playmates who died of childhood illnesses. Our Aunt Mary Ruth was a dancer at the original Casa Manana, as you heard, during the late 1930s, and she also taught dancing in Big Spring during the off-season. She supported our mother and Nana once they returned to Big Spring. The 3 of them moved from house to house, often renting garage apartments and rooms from friends. My mother's father died in 1938 under mysterious circumstances at a veterans hospital in Muskogee. Her brother Joe had been bouncing around from job to job throughout the late 1930s. Then he joined the Army. He sent money home to our grandmother during World War II, but he was killed at the end of the war. Our mother confronted difficulty and death early and often, but this did not dampen her spirit. As you heard, in 1942, at 16, she went to work on the Big Spring Herald. She worked her beat with her dog Byline, who is pictured with her on the cover of your program. She told me it was on the police beat she learned everything there was to know about human nature. She was on the police beat at 18. She said it taught her to be kind, as others had lives so much more difficult than her own. As you heard, at 18, she had her first front-page story about D-Day. Her newspaper publisher and editor believed in her and encouraged her to go to college. She was never sure, but she suspected they paid for her tuition at Texas Tech University, where she majored in journalism. She married our father in 1946, after he returned from his deployment in the Air Force, and together they forged a remarkable life, which was the first real stability our mom had ever known. She continued to find jobs as a journalist in every town in which they lived. She worked throughout my childhood, but I never felt neglected. I don't know how she did it. She was always vitally involved with her own life, setting a wonderful example for how to live, pursuing those things that interested her, but yet she was also present for all of us. That being said, I'm amused by this excerpt from a letter she wrote my dad while he was working out of town, describing how she just wanted a little more time for herself. She wrote, "It is raining and thundering here now, and I have just returned from taking the kids to the stable. BL, Pat, Mike, and Steve. Norman is downstairs watching the boys' TV, so he is leaving me alone too. Whoop, spoke too soon. I now have a jabberbox with me." It is really pouring down now, and I guess I should go get the kids, but they will stay in the barn, I hope. I just called to see if the kids were in the barn, etc. Betty Lynn says I'm going to have to take her out to the stables more often because Black Bucket reared with her about 4 times and scared the heck out of her. She says, "I just thought I better tell you that unless you want me to get killed." Time marches on. We finished eating now. I've cleaned the kitchen while the kids were playing wild games with all the neighborhood in our backyard. I've called them in now to start their homework. It is a keen evening to play out, and they are reluctant to come in and begin studying. Now the Buckley kids have decided it's time to begin baths, feed the dogs, and Norman is running around like something from a fairy tale. He is scarfed from head to foot. The Buckley kids all grew up and our lives moved in different directions, spread all over the country. Our parents moved to South Dakota for the last 6 years of my dad's life, and they found their greatest happiness there, enjoying each other's company. But it didn't last. My dad was diagnosed with lung cancer in January of 1989. Our mother nursed him through his radiation and chemotherapy, but he only lived a few months. After he died, she moved back to Fort Worth with the help of my brother Mike. She moved into the home she'd live in for the rest of her life, and she cared for her mother and her sister in their final years. Both of them became severely debilitated, and it wasn't easy for our mom to take on the responsibility by herself. But she did it, without hesitation. She created a home where our Nana and our Aunt Mary Ruth could both live and feel safe. I tell these stories to demonstrate our mother's incredible resilience and her compassionate nature, such that even in the face of loss, challenge, and adversity, she found a way forward with optimism, a sense of humor, and a joyful spirit. She never complained. She just continued, always looking ahead to what was next, looking for new ways to contribute. On a personal level, our mother was a great anchor and friend to me. Through my own losses, she has always been there to support me. At my worst times, she would gently, compassionately say to me, "As bad as it is right now, you will continue, and you will find meaning in it. As hard as it may seem at this moment, you must find your way back to joy." And I have tried to do that, to emulate the example our mother set for our way of living. As I navigate this very great loss of my mom, her voice is in my ear now, saying, "Find your way back to joy." I moved back to Fort Worth during the pandemic in 2020, originally planning to only be here 3 weeks. But I didn't want my mom to be alone, and I realized time was running out. I felt she had given so much of herself to me and to so many others, and I was now in a position in life where I could return this favor, share this time with her, making sure she could be at ease as she approached these final years. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. With the support of my siblings and the wonderful ladies who cared for her, we made sure our mother could stay in our home and live out her days in peace. I spent my time here whenever I wasn't working, and I was able to witness my mom reflecting on her life as she prepared to complete this wonderful, joyful, challenging 99.5-year journey. You see, she approached her death consciously, embracing the Latin phrase, memento mori, remember you shall die. She had no fear or anxiety about it, but instead moved towards death in the manner in which she lived, with optimism, curiosity, kindness, and hope. On June 7th, my mom went out to dinner in the theater with my sister, my brother and sister-in-law to see Cats, of all things, at Casa Mañana. She had a wonderful evening. On June 9th, she took a fall at home and she quickly declined. And she passed away very peacefully just over 2 weeks later, and I was holding her hand as she did so. After she died, I found a note that she had written. She spoke lovingly of each of her children and gratefully of my dad, who left her very well provided for. At the end of it, she wrote, "I thank God for my wonderful family and my outstanding husband, Ernest Lynn Buckley, and I thank the good Lord for my long life. I've been blessed in so many ways. Amen." Time is precious, and I appreciate and am thankful for all these eventful years allowed me. Love always, Betty Bob Buckley. A friend of mine read our mother's obituary and the list of her many accomplishments, and he said to me, "Norm, your mom stomped the earth." And I like that image. She indeed joyfully stomped the earth. She came to participate, and she left everything on the field. My sister, Betty Lynn, and my brother Patrick and I want to thank you so much for coming today. To celebrate our mom. We also want to pay tribute to our brother Michael, who died in 2020. Because of the pandemic, we were never able to give Mike the memorial we would have liked, but we remember him with so much love. He was always there for our mother with such faithfulness and care, and we all miss him. If you happen to be walking along the Trinity River between Bryant Irvin Road and Southwest Boulevard, take a few moments to sit on the bench we dedicated in his honor. Okay, I'm almost done. Just a month before my mom passed away on Memorial Day weekend of this year, I took her out for my last drive with her. Take your deep breath. We would often get ice cream in the evenings and go through old neighborhoods reminiscing. That night we drove by Casa Mañana, where she had happily spent so many years, both as a child and as an adult. And she suddenly got philosophical, and she wondered why she was still here. I told her she was here so I could continue to learn from her. We were headed home then, and I remember this so clearly. She said it had been hard to lose so many of her family and friends, and she longed to see them again. I thought about my own losses, and I sighed and said, "Life is so strange, isn't it?" And she agreed and said, "Yes, it's very strange." And she hesitated a moment, and then she added, "But look at that sunset." Even as she anticipated her death, she was so engaged with life. Even as she remembered the past, she was so aware of the present and reminded me to be so. I loved her very much, and I will always miss her. She was my mother, my teacher, my friend. She reminded me, even at the very end of her life, this is the day the Lord has made, so let us rejoice and be glad in it.
I may not be the most important person in your life. I just hope that when you hear my name, you smile and say, "That's my mom." I love you.
Love you too, Mom.
Our charge is clear, dear friends. Go forth and share joy. See each day with hope and love that has been shared this day. Give witness to the power of steadfast love offered to everyone you meet. Go, surrounded by the grace of the source of life and the giver of peace, the one who gifted us with Betty Bob Buckley. Go in peace. Amen.